Hello and welcome to another episode of Answering the Call. Tonight we're lucky to have Ray Edwards, resident of East Bridgewater, who served during the Vietnam era. Ray, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I'm glad to have you. Can you tell us a little bit about where you grew up and your early life?
I grew up in South Boston in the late 50s and the early 60s. We moved to Brockton for 2 years. I went to North Junior High for a couple of years, and then we went back to South Boston.
Wow.
And we just, we hung out on the corner with all the guys. Every corner had a different group of guys, and they called us those gangs back then. And everybody was different. Everybody had their own territory. They couldn't go here or there, but they'd end up in a fight somewhere. South Boston it's a wild place. It was, not no more. But it was a good neighborhood. The people knew everybody. The women that sit out on the lounge chairs at night, on summer nights, and if you walk by doing something wrong, I'm calling your mother. They had the party lines.
Sure.
So you could hear everybody talking, and they'd call your mother and tell them whatever you did. They didn't hesitate. They did it. They knew your name. Everybody knew everybody in South Boston back then. We were the product of like World War II guys, Korean guys.
The greatest generation.
We were growing up basically to follow in their footsteps, because that's what all we heard about, how they saved the world, and they did. They saved the world. And it was expected of us to go into the military, I think. Not positive, but I think so.
Sure.
So I did what I was supposed to do. Growing up in Southie was an experience I'll never forget.
It was an education.
It was an education without going to school.
Wow. Did you play any sports around that time?
I played baseball mostly.
Okay.
I liked baseball.
Yeah, all right. And about what year did you enter high school?
64, 65 maybe.
All right. All right, so I mean, right during the middle of the 60s, and of course there was a lot going on.
Right.
And so tell us a little bit about high school and some decisions that you made.
I didn't like school too much, so I used to take off all the time. And I just figured the service was a better place for me.
Okay.
So I made the decision to go into the Marine Corps at 17 years old.
Okay. And you said you grew up in your father. What service was your father in?
He was in the Navy.
He was in the Navy? Okay.
My older brothers were Army.
No kidding. How many older brothers did you have?
2.
2? Okay.
No, 3, I'm sorry. 1 was Air Force, 2 were Army.
Okay. Wow. So were they already in the service at the time?
Yes.
Okay. And what did your parents think of you joining the service?
They didn't like it, but my father was in the Nicaragua Boxer Rebellion, whatever it was, in Nicaragua, and he just said, there's a war going on. I said, yeah, I know. He says, and you're going in the Marine Corps? I said, yeah.
Okay.
And we did. There was 3 of us went in together.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask. Did you have any friends?
Yeah, 3 of us.
Who were they? Do you know?
John DePass.
Okay.
He died about 5 or 6 years ago with cancer. And we called him Chuck. His name was Robert Burke. He died last year of cancer.
Wow.
We all went in together.
At the same time. Where were you sworn in?
The Custom House.
The Custom House in Boston. And you enlisted, right? You weren't drafted.
No, we enlisted. The Marines didn't draft back then.
Then, right. Yeah.
They don't draft now either.
Yeah.
I mean, they drafted some in Vietnam, but it was after we were already there.
Okay.
The closest place for us to join in South Boston was either Dorchester up in the corner or the Custom House in Boston. So we went to the Custom House.
Okay. Now, just that time, I mean, you said you lived in Brockton for a couple of years and then moved back. Had you done any traveling? Had you been out of state before? Or?
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
My parents were from North Carolina originally, so we used to go back to see our grandmother and aunts and uncles.
All right. So you get sworn in. You get, I imagine was it a bus or a train down to Paris Island?
It was a train from South Station.
Okay.
And then a bus from Yosemite
Wow.
to Paris Island.
So what was the indoctrination? What was it like going into Marine boot camp?
There was no phone calls or nothing like that. No phones to tell your parents you were there. Did you ever see Full Metal Jacket?
Yes, I did.
The boot camp part is that.
Very.
The guy who wrote that book was in my series.
Oh, no kidding.
And I was in the third, he was in the first. So I was on the third deck of the building, he was on the first floor of the building, the guy who wrote the book about Full Metal. But that was our boot camp. Full Metal Jacket was our boot camp.
Wow.
I thought our drill instructor taught Emery how to be a drill instructor.
No kidding. Wow.
They didn't have a problem putting their hands on you, beating you up, and all of that. Marching in the swamps at night, which you have a laundry bag with your stuff in it, and you'd have to stay in the water all night or something. They had no problems.
That's it. I'm sure it's a little different then than it is today.
I think there was 110 of us, and like 87 graduated.
Wow.
Out of the 110.
Okay. All right, so now you do boot camp, you survive, you make it through, and where are you stationed next or sent to?
I was sent to Camp Lejeune for infantry training. And then from infantry training, I went to Courthouse Bay for combat engineer school, which was demolitions, landmines, booby traps.
Now, was this
that.
something you chose, or just
No,
they made the
chose.
decision?
Well, they
Okay.
do it based on your test results.
Okay.
That's how they did it back then. Whatever you scored, they see what you were best qualified for.
Okay. So what did they train you to do at the demolition school?
Third definition
Yep. Go
was to
ahead.
construct and destruct.
Okay.
I'd blow up anything, anywhere. I could build anything, anywhere. Bridges, barracks, whatever.
Wow. But this was also, you had to go through the regular training. I mean, how did the M4? Did you carry on any other weapons? Learned?
In Vietnam?
Yes.
In Vietnam, I carried a Laws rocket, an M16 they were fully automatic, machine gun.
Okay.
A 45, 2 grenades, between 20 and 40 pounds of C4, dead cord, time fuse, blasting caps, and food and water, clothes, dry clothes.
Trained you for everything, had you with everything. Okay, out of demolition school.
I went to California to a bridge company.
Okay.
I learned how to build bridges,
Okay.
pontoon bridges.
Wow.
I just put them. I actually learned at the Colorado River. They drove us up to the Colorado River, and we built a bridge across the Colorado River and then took it apart.
Okay.
Took 30 days
Wow.
to construct and destruct.
Wow. they soup to nuts.
Yeah.
Now, what year would this have been about?
67.
67. Okay. Okay, so now you're out
67.
in California. Did you say, was it Camp Pendleton there?
Camp Pendleton.
Okay.
Right.
How about from there? Where, after you got done with the demolition, were you sent to more schools, or were you?
No, I was stationed at the bridge company until I was 19. On my 19th birthday, they gave me my orders for Vietnam.
Okay.
So they sent me home for 30 days, and then I had to go through training to go to Vietnam.
And where was that at?
In Camp Pendleton.
Pendleton. Okay.
And then right to Vietnam.
Right to Vietnam. Now, when you left California for Vietnam, on a ship or a plane?
Plane.
Plane.
Continental, I think it was.
Okay.
We had flight attendants. And we all had our weapons and our gear, but we had civilian flight attendants and stuff.
Wow. Where did they fly you out to?
We flew right in, well, first we flew into Okinawa, or Hawaii, then Okinawa, and then Da Nang.
Okay.
And the same thing coming back. It was Okinawa, Hawaii, and it was in San Francisco. Travis, I think was the name of it, in San Francisco.
Wow. Okay, so you get into Da Nang. What happens there, and how are you? Do you have any idea how you know where you're being stationed?
No, they give you papers and tell you to report to a division.
Okay.
So you go and you find out where the division is. You ask people. They don't tell you where it is. You just ask people. And you go to your division and they tell you what company you're in, what platoon. But as soon as you get off the plane, it was like 110 degrees. And the heat hit you, and you're starched. Utilities, they call them dungarees. They were starched, and the heat was just killing you. So I seen a pile of old jungle fatigues over there and boots that people going home just threw there. And I went over and picked out mine.
Yeah.
I put them on.
A lot cooler.
A lot cooler, and they thought I was there for a couple of months. So it didn't bother me for the first month or so until they found out I just got there.
Wow. All right, so what division and platoon were you assigned to?
I was with A Company, 1st Engineers, 1st Marine Division.
Okay.
Combat Engineers, 1st Combat Engineers.
All right.
And they assigned me to either Fox 2-3 or 1-9. 1-9 was a walking dead.
Wow.
You wanted how to survive in Southie.
Yeah. Wow. So you stayed in Da Nang, would you say, for about a month or a couple months?
Let's see, I was there for probably 3 to 4 weeks.
Okay. And from there you went to?
Quezon.
Okay. Right into it.
It was all right. Nice place.
Yeah. So this would have been January of '68 or so?
I think I got the Quezon area around February '68.
Okay.
The end of February.
All right. Okay. So when you first get there, and do they have any type of orientation to what you're going to be doing? No? Just right into the field?
Yeah, with that squad. You're in the 3rd Squad, 3rd Platoon. See you later.
How did the Marines that were already there treat the newcomers?
They called them F&Gs.
Okay.
They left you alone. They figured that they didn't want to know you. They didn't want to know names. They didn't want to know where you were from. And I was the same way after a while. You see somebody get killed, and if you don't know them, it really doesn't hurt you. If you know them, it tears you up. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And if I could just, for the audience, I'll just say you use the term F&Gs. I'll say the NG was new guy, I would imagine.
Right.
Yeah,
you can figure out what the F was.
Yeah. So, but that was it. So that was how they looked at it. Okay. So what was your day like there?
You'd get up in the morning, go on patrol, search for booby traps or tunnels. And if you found a tunnel, you go in the tunnel and see what's in there. Find booby traps or rice, even hordes of rice, you'd blow it up. And you set up ambushes and just wait. It was boring until you had a firefight, and then it was, the boredom was gone for a few minutes.
Okay. And from my understanding, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, this was all like a prelude before the Tet Offensive. So, I mean, was the North Vietnamese Army, were they like probing, or were they doing direct attacks at that time, or?
The Tet Offense started at the end of January, I believe, of '68. They hit Saigon, Da Nang. Tried over on Quezon is what stopped them, the base of Quezon, because they were coming down the Ho Chi Minh Trail, and that's where it was. Okay. And they couldn't get by us because of the planes kept us alive. The
Air Force?
The Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, all the jet fighters, and the chopper pilots. And if you want to see a brave guy, go up to Graham. He was a chopper pilot, Bob Graham.
Okay.
Did you know that?
I did not know that.
He was a chopper pilot. I pulled my car in to get a sticker one day. He came out, wanted to know whose car it was because of the plate. He asked me what I did. I told him. He says I was a helicopter pilot there.
Wow.
So they kept us alive.
They did.
I don't care what anybody says. For 77 days, them guys are surrounded.
And to give some perspective, do you know like how many Marines were stationed at that base about that time?
5,000.
5,000?
1,000 Army, 5,000 Marines.
Okay. So a total of 6,000. What were the estimates of the enemy you were facing?
Between 20 and 40,000.
Wow.
And they had, I forget the total, you can Google it and it'll tell you the body count of the enemy. And it'll tell you the body count, how many were dead.
I do have that, so,
Right.
but we'll get to that later. Can you talk a little bit about the base and where it was and what you were working out of?
Well, I mostly swept the roads and set up ambushes at night, but I swept the roads for mine every day. The base was flat. They used to drop in, they'd fly over us and drop in parachutes with food and water and ammo. Half of it would land in the minefield. It was very boring unless there was incoming or outgoing. All you did was sit in a hole, a bunker, and most guys were just scared to death. You know, because you get rocketed every day, every single boom, boom, boom. You just hide in a hole most of the time.
Wow. Were you assisted at all by the South Vietnamese, the Army? Well, I know, but just curious.
There were some of them there, but I don't remember them doing anything.
Okay. Okay.
You know, and then I was up on the hills overlooking the base, 881, 861. We lost 20-something guys on 881. I think it was 24 guys or something we lost one day.
Is there any specific engagements that you remember that you'd like to talk about? Any particular days?
One night a tank was going through the jungle and the sapper dropped some kind of charge in the torrent.
Could you explain what a sapper is? Just
it's a Vietnamese. It could be a NVA. It could be a Viet Cong. It could be a Arvin, a South Vietnamese Army guy.
Okay.
It could be our barber. You know, when you go in the rear and you get a haircut. We got him at the wire one night. We killed him. But they sit in a tree and the hatch is open to the tank, and they'll drop a satchel charge in there, or a bomb, some type of bomb, grenade or whatever. And they killed 3 guys. And that's the thing I'll never forget about that. I was at LZ Hawk at the time, which is between Quezon and the pontoon bridge, the old French bridge. And we went down and got the guys, the dead guys that they killed, the 3 Marines. And there was one, the Viet Cong that they killed. The other 2 guys on the tank killed them, and they captured one. So they hung him up in a tree by his neck. And the chaplain come by, Ray Stubbe was his name, and he tells us, cut him down and bury him. So they cut him down, they bury him, they left his foot sticking out. The chaplain comes by the next day and sees that, and he just had a fit. They had to bury him, but I looked at the chaplain, I said, you know, he killed 3 Marines.
Yeah.
And, you know, why should we respect him? But it was actually a war crimes.
Yeah.
You know, you had to be careful.
You did. I mean, and the other thing about the Vietnam War, I mean, you were almost, you know, you read about the rules. You know, you're fighting a war, and the government's putting rules on what you can and can't do. You know, it's tough, you know, for us to imagine. I mean, any close friends there that you've made that, you know, carried with you for the lifetime? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we still go at it. Dickie Wiglup, he was in New Albany, Indiana. Paul Cotton was in New Albany. Joe Zinks in Dorchester. We get together every year. I'm with Joe all the time, though. But Dickie and them, we meet in Myrtle Beach every year, Dickie and Paul. And there's another guy named Harold Patterson. He lives right outside camp, but he stayed in for 20 years.
Wow.
And he's too sick to travel. So we go to him once in a while and visit him.
Wow.
And another guy that I was in boot camp with, Bill Simon, he had 44 years in total, counting his reserve time. I see him like 3 or 4 times a year.
Wow. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I don't think we can really understand the bonds that are forged because, you know, of the job that you carried out.
Well, you didn't want to be friends with anybody.
You were afraid to be.
Right, because if they die, you know, they're your friend, and you'd have to live with that. So you didn't want to be friends. I didn't want to be friends with anybody, but you had a little 3 or 4 guys that you were friends with the whole time you were there. unless something happened to one of them or one of them went home. And then when they went home, you kind of stayed with just your little circle. We go out on patrol, they'd be 4 of us, and that's it. We didn't have any other friends. When we became friends, because we could be sitting in the foxhole in Quezon or Da Nang or Phu Bai or Hue or anywhere one night, and the next night we'd be sitting in another part of the country.
Did you understand the mission that the United States was trying to accomplish there at the time, or you just look at it that this is our little area and this is our job?
The mission we were told was to stop communism from spreading, which I think we did, spreading from the other countries, not Vietnam itself, but the other small countries around it.
Laos.
Yeah, and but our mission was to stay alive. My team, the only mission I had was to stay alive, to keep our guys alive.
Okay.
You know, but I didn't know why we were fighting, other than what they told us to stop communism. I still don't know why we fought in Vietnam.
Wow. Did you have much interaction with the people in that area, the civilians?
No, I was in the jungle most of the time.
Okay.
I went to a village or something, you know, you interact with a few of them. The sick ones, you get the corpsman over and treat them, and a woman having a baby or something, you'd get the corpsman over. If the corpsman was busy, we'd take care of it.
How did the civilians treat you?
Treated you good to your face, you know, but half of them were enemy. You know, it's the way they were. You know, they were at war for 1,000 years.
Yeah.
They beat off the Chinese, they beat off the French. The Chinese is a powerful nation.
Right, yeah.
And they beat them back.
Wow.
Ho Chi Minh was a cook in the Hotel Parker in Boston, you know.
No kidding.
He used to be a cook in Boston in the hotel.
Wow, and how the world changes, huh? That's, you know.
He was their leader.
That's incredible. How about, like, can you tell us anything about your superiors, your sergeants, your lieutenants?
Never really seen them. You know, I took my own team when I was an NCO. I take my team, and we could be gone for 2-3 months before we get back to our unit. 4 months, and there'd always be somebody new, different person in charge. You're in for 2-3 days, and then you're back out in the jungle.
How did you receive your orders? I mean, how did you receive your mission? In other words,
we were attached to 2-3 or 1-9,
Okay.
you know, and we'd have to do what they tell us to do.
Okay.
Because we were the demolition guys and the booby trap guys.
Okay.
And the points, most of the time, they made us walk point because we were the engineers. You know?
Wow. Yeah, so they wanted you to clear what was up in front of
Yeah.
them, you know, going through.
Right.
I mean, did you work with any other specialty teams?
No.
No. You
Just straight out jungle fighting.
wow.
Straight out warfare.
And how long did this go on for you? I mean, how long were you in country?
A year and 2 weeks or so, a little over 2 weeks. I got in country January 2nd of 68, and I left January 9th of 69, or January 14th of 69, one of them dates, I'm not sure.
Did you always say was your main base out of Quezon?
No, our main base was out of Da Nang,
Okay.
but they would ship us, you know, we'd be shipped with this outfit for 3 months or 4 months, and then we'd go back to our outfit, and they'd ship us to another outfit for 3 or 4 months. Everybody needed the demolition guys. Every patrol that went out had a demolition guy with them.
Wow. It just, and that, you know, that's unbelievable. I mean, it just seemed like for you it was almost, you had no information.
No, you don't. You just march along.
Yeah.
You follow along and do what you're supposed to do.
Wow.
And you knew what to do most of the time. You know, you knew what was expected of you. If you're with a company of guys or a platoon of guys, you know what your job is, and you just go about your job.
What were, say, some of the more dangerous mines, booby traps that you faced that
Oh, they had some beauties. They had cone-shaped booby traps, 20 pounds of C4 in them. And if I didn't take them apart, I'd blow them up. They had punji pits. You step in a punji pit, you'd go in a tunnel. There could be what we call the two-stepper, a snake. Take 2 steps and you're dead. It's all kinds of booby traps in the tunnel. It could be from a grenade to the snake.
And you had to be able to recognize all of this all the time. And I mean, was the terrain always jungle, or was it?
Always jungle
Always
for me.
jungle.
For me,
Okay.
my experience was always jungle. It wasn't like that for everybody, I don't think.
And how about, I mean, the environment with the weather? I mean, was it the rains that we hear about?
We had monsoons. Nighttime be 80 degrees. In the summertime, you'd be freezing because the daytime's 110, 115, 100.
And you'd be freezing at 80 degrees.
Yeah, and at nighttime, you'd be looking for your poncho line to cover up with.
How well did the military, the government, keep you, you know, with equipment and supplies?
I was never. One time we walked for 6 days, no food and water, and I had a piece of sugar cane that I was gnawing on for the whole time. And then we come over this hill, and the chopper come in and left pallets of sea rations, pallets of water, and we were fine. 6 days was the longest we went
Without anything. And I mean, were you always on the move? I mean,
Yeah.
at that, on the patrols?
Yeah.
I mean, did you have like, I mean, obviously you had a starting point, but was your job to get to a certain location, or was just to clear, just to get to, and then clear it?
Clear it and then move on to the next one. Set it up, clear it out, set it for another unit would come in, take over, and we'd go do another one. We'd clear another one, so.
Wow. You know, it boggles my mind. Now, how about time off? I mean, how did they?
You got a week R&R. You know, you can go to, I personally went to Hawaii to meet my wife. Well, she was my girlfriend then. I went to Hawaii for 7 days. And that was the only time off I had in the whole time I was there.
So you only had 7 days off in the whole time you were there. That's, I mean, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, but you're only 19 years old. You don't know any better. You know, you think you're doing the right thing.
You're right.
You're young, you're healthy. You know, you just do it.
Were you aware of what was going on back in the United States as far as?
Some of it.
Some of it.
Some of it. Like the first time I heard a Doors song, "Light My Fire" by the Doors.
Okay, Doors,
See,
sure.
they had all that music barred. They wouldn't play that music on the radio. And some kids brought in a tape, and he was playing it. And I was like, "What music is that?" You know, the Doors, "Light My Fire."
Yeah.
First time I ever heard it, I was guarding the bridge at nighttime, and they didn't have floating in the water you shot at. I would throw a grenade at it. And I heard that song, and I was taken aback by it. I never heard nothing like that before.
Wow.
You know, I heard the Beatles before I went there,
Right.
and James Brown, but I never heard nothing like Jim Morrison.
Wow. They just, they kept it from you. I mean, did you ever, I mean, like Bob Hope touring, did you ever?
Yeah, I seen Bob Hope.
Did you? Yeah.
That was the Christmas of 68, right before I went home. I seen the Bob Hope show in Da Nang.
So really, for a year, other than 1 week off, you were just constantly on the go.
Yeah. Mostly walking.
And just total of 4 years.
Total jungle. Elephant grass, rather, not banana, elephant grass.
Yes.
That cut you open, you walk through it. Have one guy with the machete or 2 guys cutting a little path out. But they had to be careful because they could hit a wire. And, you know, it could take 10 or 12 guys out.
Wow.
You know, it was like a hyper-vigilant thing. You always had to be on guard. And then when you let your guard down, you were like, what do I do? I'm bored. I think that was part of my problems in life. I didn't have that adrenaline going.
The rush.
I think that's been part of my problems in life, because I know you asked me about how I adjusted. It's still a work in progress, I think.
Sure, and it's understandable. It really is. I mean, I mean, you come from the United States where you grew up in the 50s into the early 60s, and then suddenly you're thrust into a world that you probably never even knew existed.
Didn't. I quit high school, went in the Marine Corps, got a GED. Coming home, 4 days, I'm in the jungle one day. You know, I got all my gear, my explosives and everything, a rocket. I carried a rocket, Mars rocket. 4 days later, I'm sitting in my mother's kitchen.
And we're going to talk about that. We've reached the break here. We'll be back after the break. I'm here with Ray Edwards from the United States Marine Corps, Vietnam veteran, and we'll see you after the break.
I joined the National Guard and never thought I'd be saving lives.
It's more than money for college. It's built my character and given me a sense of accomplishment. Now I'm on a career path and I'm the leader of my team.
I put on the uniform and I have a whole new outlook on life. Country, community, family. That's what matters most to me. If that matters to you, go to 1-800-GO-GUARD.com.
Welcome back. This is the second part of Answering the Call. Today, we're lucky enough to have with us Ray Edwards, a East Bridgewater resident and also a United States Marine Corps veteran, and he was a veteran of the Vietnam War. Ray, during the break, you happened to mention you wanted to tell a story about your father before we moved on. Go ahead.
When I get home, one day I'm in the jungle, 4 days later I'm walking in the door in the kitchen. And my father looks at me and he didn't say, "Hi, how are you? You okay?" He says, "Donnie Turner's dead." I just left Donnie Turner 4 days prior to that. And I gave him all my stuff. He was a Southie kid. I had, I gave him all my gear that I thought he could use, because he was in infantry too. I gave him everything I thought he could use, my K, everything but my K-bar. I kept my K-bar. And about maybe 10 days, 2 weeks later, the funeral parlor. I go to the funeral parlor because his body arrived. And his wife's 18 years old, 7 months pregnant. And she's standing there. They had an open casket with a glass top. And we called him Sleepy growing up. That was his nickname growing up. I've known him since we were this big. And I looked at him and I said, I didn't say it to her, I said it to myself. I said, "Well, I'll just sleep forever now." And next thing I know, this colonel, full-bird colonel, comes up to me and he says, "You're Edwards?" I says, "Yes, sir." He says, "The wife requested you be a pallbearer." And I'm looking at him like, "Huh? I'm on leave, I don't want to do this." So the next day I went down Summer Street. There was an Army-Navy store. Well, that day I went down Summer Street and I bought a dress blues uniform. And the next morning I had to carry his casket out, and we buried him over in the Parkway, American Legion Parkway, VFW Parkway, whatever it is over there in Dorchester, Roslindale area. And then his wife wouldn't take the flag from the colonel. No, he had to have me give it to her, and I had to give it a speech about how a grateful president and country, and it was just so phony, you know. But she was really appreciative that I'd done it. But that was my indoctrination to coming home. You know, and it was like I was living a dream.
So, I mean, you were just from the jungle to Dorchester 4 days, and the news of your friend actually arrived before you did.
Yeah.
And I mean, this isn't to single out the Marine, but it was all the services. It was just, you're here today and you're here over here the next day.
Right.
And there's nothing to prepare you.
For no training, no debriefings.
No talking to anyone.
No talking down to anybody, no nothing. Just, and when they discharge you, here's your paper, sign, see you later.
Did they want you to stay?
Yes.
And re-enlist?
Yes.
Did they offer you anything, just out of curiosity?
They offered me a staff sergeant, E6, and I think it was $15,000 bonus, sign-on, re-enlistment bonus, and my choice of duty, which would have been Vietnam if I stayed.
You would have gone back?
Yeah. Well, I knew how to survive. See, when I was on the plane leaving Vietnam, I couldn't wait to get on there. And all of a sudden, I felt like I was a traitor.
You were abandoning it.
Yeah. I knew how to survive. Some of these guys didn't. And I just thought I was a traitor. And I was home for the 30 days they sent me home. Then I reported to Camp Lejeune. They gave me a unit. I went into the 8th Engineers. I went right into the gunny's office. I said, Gunny, I got to go back to Vietnam. He says, why? I said, I feel like a traitor. He says, well, you only got a few months left. You'd have to re-enlist. I said, I can't re-enlist, but I'll go back for the rest of my time. They wouldn't let me. I would have went back for the rest of my time. And then the gunny had the guy who was in charge of re-enlistments come to me and offer me staff sergeant and all of that stuff, and I just couldn't do it. There was too much turbulence in the Marine Corps at that time. There was a lot of racial riots. They were closing down the mess halls. And a lot of them had the attitude, what are you going to do when you give them an order? What are you going to do, send me to Vietnam if I don't do it? You know, so you either have to fist fight them to make them do your authority if you were a sergeant or a corporal or an NCO, and a private or a lance corporal wouldn't do what you were told. You'd either have to fist fight them or you'd have no respect. They'd come at you, everybody would take a shot at you. It's the same as the streets. If you let one person get away with it, they're all going to take a shot at it.
This was back here in the
Camp
United
Lejeune.
States, Camp
Yeah,
Lejeune.
Camp Lejeune.
Did you see any of this attitude in Vietnam?
Oh yeah, they had the Black Power salutes, the racial riots. We had all kinds of racial riots. That's when they had that raising the fist.
At the Olympics.
So all the guys, you know, they'd raise their fist, and the white guys, they'd have resentment because they were going around with this power stuff. And one morning we went to sweep a road, and there was a dead white guy beat to death. That, you know, it was a racial thing. And they closed the mess halls. That was in Vietnam.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, these are things that we, you know,
No.
they're not. It's not in the history books.
No.
I can tell you that. And you had been gone for a year, but to you, the world must have really, to come back and see what was going on in the United States. What was that like?
Well, the first day I was home in the daytime, because I get home at night. The next day, my mother worked in the PX in the Fargo building on Summer Street. And I went down to see her. I was in civilian clothes. And my brother Ralph just got out of the Army after 11 years. And he was a guard at the Army base, a civilian guard. And there was a protest going on. They were trying to climb over the fence. And I could see my brother. I was on the stairs from the PX, and I could see across the street. I could see my brother there trying to push him off. So I went over there like a nut and started throwing people around. And a newscaster said, why are you doing this? And I started swearing at him. I said, there's 19-year-old kids over there dying, and you're here wondering why we're doing this. I said, it ain't about a war, it's about kids dying. And that's all we were with kids.
Right.
The kids from Saudi, 25 kids from Saudi. I think there was one guy that was older, but everybody else was teenagers. You know, that's how we were as kids. I didn't know any better, you know. I didn't like the protesters. I believed in God and country, and might see my brother over there in trouble, so I went over.
Sure. Did it bother you the way the country reacted to you?
Yeah. I didn't tell anybody I was a Vietnam veteran. I didn't tell anybody else. I mean, that didn't know me. People that knew me knew what I was, but if I met somebody new, I filled out an application to be a teacher. It was the Boston School, teacher school,
Sure.
or whatever. I filled out, and I didn't put down I was in the military. I didn't put down I was in Vietnam. I didn't put down nothing. I just wrote on that. But all I had was a GED, so I couldn't be a teacher. So my next job was Anheuser-Busch. I went over Budweiser, I delivered beer. They put up with me for 30 years. And that was my transition back to the world.
Nothing else. Did you use your GI benefits at all?
No. I was too busy working, trying to raise my kids.
Okay, so you come home. I imagine you're about 21 at this time, 22? No, 20?
20.
20 years old, and you...
I couldn't go in a bar and get a drink.
Or probably couldn't... Could you vote at that time?
I don't think... I don't know, to be truthful.
Yeah. But you couldn't get a drink.
No, I went in... My father was in this bar meeting a friend of his, and I walked in there, and I couldn't get a drink. They go, let me see your ID. And I was like, come on, you pal. But they wouldn't give me a drink. I was only 20 years old.
And you're back, and wow. And I mean, this is really, I mean, we had spoken before before today's show, and you know, obviously the World War II vets, you know, had gotten thanked. It's like you said, they saved the world. But the Korean and the Vietnam vets are just, they're spit upon. Well, the Vietnam especially was really spit upon. The Korean were forgotten.
Well, on the plane coming home, the pilot got on the intercom and he says, if you're in a uniform and if you got civilian clothes, put them on.
That's what they told you.
That was the pilot of the plane, civilian plane. I think it was Continental Airlines at the time.
And so, are you? And I remember you saying you flew probably to Okinawa and then Hawaii.
And then to California.
And where did you land as far as, where was your first stop in the United States, other than Hawaii?
It was California. It was that's where my flight ended, and then I had to go to the San Francisco airport and get my flight to Boston. Okay. And I still had a uniform on because I didn't have civilian clothes. So the guy at the desk says to me, buddy, he says, there's a lot of trouble going on around here. If I was you, he says, I was in the service myself. I was in Vietnam. He said, I know what your ribbons are. He says, you should get some civilian clothes. I says, they didn't give me my paycheck. Because they didn't pay, they gave me a thing to get a plane home. They didn't give me my paycheck yet, my money. So I didn't have the money actually to buy civilian clothes. This guy bought me a shirt and a pair of pants.
Just a stranger?
Yeah.
Because he knew what you had gone through.
What I was going to go through with the protesters and stuff. So he tried to avoid that for me all the time. So everybody had a bad welcome home, but to me, this guy made my welcome home a little bit brighter.
Okay. Wow. It's just, I can't imagine it. Did you fly into Boston?
Yes. Took a cab to my mother's house. It was like 1 o'clock in the morning. I knocked on the door. My mother was like a truck driver at me.
Yeah.
Then my father came walking in. My mother called him. He came home. And that's the first, he didn't say hi on. He says, Donnie Turner's dead. And I just left Donnie Turner. So that was my father's greeting to me.
Wow.
You know?
And I mean, okay, now you get back. Obviously, unfortunately, one of the first things you had to do was be the pallbearer at your friend's funeral. How did others, friends, relatives, how did they treat you when you first got back?
Some of them were good, and some of them grew apart. We grew apart, like, I don't know if it was over Vietnam or not. We just went different ways. And these are kids I was with all my life, which was, 21 years old. But we were in kindergarten together, and they just, one of them was in the Navy, Mark. Just a few years ago, he got me involved in this thing he worked at, and I invested all my money in there. $685,000 I lost in the Ponzi scheme. And I've known him since kindergarten, but now he's gone, he's taken off. I don't see him at all.
Wow.
2 guys that were running the Ponzi scheme are in federal prison.
Wow.
But that was my 401k, my everything.
Just took it, no respect after all you had gone through.
And he knew it, because he was offshore. He was in Vietnam, but he was on a boat offshore. He never stepped foot on land. But I knew him since kindergarten.
Wow. Unbelievable. I mean, this world sometimes doesn't make any any sense. And wow. All right. Now you're home. You're still in the service, though, when you first get home.
Right.
Okay. How long are you home for?
I was home for 30 days.
Okay. And then they sent you?
To Camp with June.
June. Okay. And how long were you there?
Until June of '69 they released. June 20-something or 29th or something they released me. They gave me 2 months out early because I wouldn't re-up. So they discharged you early.
Discharged, they don't know what to do with you, basically.
Yeah. I only had 2 months left.
Yeah.
So they sent me home. And then the day I was leaving, this kid that I was in Vietnam, that I knew in Vietnam, come up to me and said, I can't even remember the guy's name now, but he stepped on a mine in Vietnam, and he was one of my guys that I was in charge of. I says, how is he? He says, he's in the hospital in New York, in the VA hospital. So I drove home from Camp with June. I stopped at the VA hospital. I knew his name back then. And I sat with him for like 2 hours. He stepped on a mine. And then they kicked me out, and I went home, and I've really never seen anybody for 20 years. And then the guy from Dorchester got a hold of me. And he gave me the guy from Indiana's phone number. I called him, and we get together 2-3 times a year now.
Okay.
I nominated him today for a quilt. You ever hear of Quilts of Valor?
Yes.
I nominated him today. I put his application in for him to get a quilt. I got one a couple of years ago in Myrtle Beach.
If you want, if I know, I've seen what it is, but maybe explain what Quilts of Honor is.
They take the veterans. The women make the quilts. They make quilts, and like my quilt has a Marine Corps emblems on it, and Vietnam. I think the Vietnam ribbon is on it. And they call you up in front of people, and they Quilts of Valor. We quilt you, and they say your name and that you in the Marine Corps or the Army or whatever, in Vietnam or wherever, and they wrap you in a quilt. And it's a pretty awesome thing. You know, I done it beside a World War II guy who was in his 90s, and I practically carried him back to his chair. He was crying so much. And one of the other guys, Pat Finn, he's from Southie, but he lives in West Bridgewater, actually, he lives now. His wife just died about 3 weeks ago. But he started crying when they wrapped him with the quilt there. They done me and him together. Friends of ours down there had it done.
These quilts, they tell your story in its way.
Right, when they give you the quilt.
Right.
So I just nominated it today. So I mean, you can nominate any veteran. You got a veteran show. Yeah. You just go on Quilts of Valor and you fill it out and say, I want to nominate this guy for a quilt. And they'll set up a thing, and they'll wrap him in a quilt. They'll wrap a quilt around him. And if he has any medals, they'll get pictures of the medals and onto the quilt, and they'll put them on there on the quilt.
The story. Yeah,
it's a pretty good thing.
Yeah, God, there are some people. It's too bad I've had some that I wish I had known something more about that since, because of what they did. But to get back to just a little bit, we've got just a little bit more time. But so you come back now, and now regular life takes over.
Yeah, sure does. It's like I say, I transitioned to civilian life. I tried to be a teacher. I wanted to be a teacher. Then I took the police test, and I got in trouble, so I couldn't be a police officer. Then I went to Anheuser-Busch and worked for them most of my life, and they treated me pretty well.
Okay.
They put up with me.
Yeah. Okay. But and if you don't mind me asking, I mean, that year in Vietnam changed you.
I was there last night. I'm there every night. I dream about. I can't. I have PTSD. The VA awarded me a disability, and I have my nightmares just about every night. I won't take any medications for it. It's something you learn to control, but you can't control your nightmares.
Right.
But everything else, I pretty well learned to control.
Do you work with others?
I did, but now I only do it if somebody needs me. If they ask for me specifically. It's like I was going to work with EB Hope.
Yes.
I thought I was going to help some people, but they got too many qualified guys there. They don't, they got degrees and this and that. I'm just a street kid. So there's nothing I can really do for them. But if you have a veteran that needs help, I can help him. I know the system pretty good. I have friends in there. I have friends at the vet center that I send to the vet center and they get help. I can help a veteran, or I can't help anybody else. But a veteran, I'll go out of my way. If they ask for me, I'll be there for them.
Well, I disagree with you that you can't help people at EB Hope, because to be honest with you, you're a street kid. People can't pull it over your eyes.
Oh, I know.
You've got that detector that tells between, truth and BS, let's put it that
but
way.
if they needed me,
Sure.
I'd go up there. I don't have a problem with that. I
No, I know you don't.
go. But they don't need me right now. They got enough going for themselves. That's good. They're doing good up there. They do good work up there, and they got a good staff, good bunch of people that volunteer and work, and that's Susan Wells and Scott Allen and the sergeant there. I can't think
Bill
of-
Patterson.
Officer Patterson, real good guy. He helps a lot. He goes to their houses. If they needed me, I'd be right with them. I wouldn't hesitate.
I'm sure they would. And they are great people. They're doing great work here, and not only in town, but it's spreading.
Right.
It's been great to see.
They got every Plymouth County, every police department in Plymouth County on board.
They've done a great job. They really.
They're good people. It's affected my family, so I'd be there to help them in a heartbeat.
Sure.
I got 2 grandkids that this has affected, and one of them was a great kid until he got involved with this stuff. And I didn't know him, the kid. He was a great kid, and
It's hard.
he's in rehab in New Hampshire now.
Yeah, it's hard. That's taken a lot of toll on its victims. One thing I do want to mention and have you talk about is the Marine Corps recognizes, because of what you did in Vietnam, your unit, and at Parris Island. Do you want to talk about
The
what's
memorial?
there? Yes.
Yeah, nine of my guys from my platoon in boot camp and basic training got killed in Vietnam. So about 30 years or so after Vietnam, I was at Quantico, Virginia, and I see this old guy, and I said, "Hey, Ward." It was my senior drill instructor. And he turns around, he's looking, he says, "We were in Vietnam together." I said, "Yeah, but I didn't tell you were my drill instructor back then." He ended up being my lieutenant in the supply in Vietnam, my senior drill instructor. And I wouldn't tell him nothing. I didn't even go in. But I seen him at Quantico, and he was just a sweet old man, loving old man. And we started talking, so we researched. We got hold of another guy from our platoon, Bill Simon from New Jersey. He was a master gunnery sergeant. And we researched, Bill and I researched the internet and all that. We come up with 9 guys that got killed in Vietnam. So we went to Parris Island, the 3 of us, and we talked to the commanding general and told them we'd like to put a memorial in Memorial Park for them. There's no civilian memorials in there. No civilian has ever put a memorial in Parris Island. So they went along with the program. 3 years, we paid almost $9,000 for the memorial. And 2 days before we're going to install it, this colonel comes up and says, "You can't do that. You can only put a plaque on the wall." I said, "Whoa, wait a minute." I said, "This can't happen." So I went to this colonel named Kabrowski. He's been in South Boston to arm him with the South Boston Vietnam Memorial. He's been there a few times, and I met him there. So I went to him. He was the chief of staff of the general. It was a different general. It was a woman general now, General Reynolds. So he got the sergeant major at the post, and he says, "Be in my office in the morning." And it was back on the next day. So we put a memorial in the Parris Island, and it's very well received. Nobody's ever done it. They made a short film about it. The Marine Corps made a short film about it, and I guess it got a lot of visitors. the 3rd Battalion, we were 3rd Battalion in basic training, so 3rd Battalion keeps it clean all the time. They go down there and clean up, police the area, clean the memorial. It's pretty good. It's a pretty cool thing.
It is, and I got to see the video, and actually, the way it looks, the DIs are not only instilling the history of what you did in Vietnam, but also inspiring and teaching what they expect.
See, we did that because we want these families to know that they live, even if they get killed in action, they live forever in the Marine. As long as the Marine Corps lives, they live. You know, that's how I feel. As long as the Marine Corps lives, I live. My name's on Paris Island and a couple of different places, and these kids' names are on Paris Island. And most people that get killed from the Marine Corps, if you're a Marine, you're a Marine forever. They can't take it away from you no matter what you do. They can't take the title, and you're just a Marine forever. And we don't want them to be forgotten. And that was our whole purpose, that we wanted to show the recruits that the drill instructors and their fellow recruits remember them and care about them. And when they made that film, that solidified our purpose. And that film wasn't made till like 2 or 3 years after that, even longer. And that solidified us doing that.
That's unbelievable. Before we wrap up, what decorations did you receive?
The Vietnam stuff, I got 4 Presidential Unit citations, which equal Bronze Stars. And I got a Bronze Star with the Combat V. National Defense, good conduct, which is surprising. National Defense, good conduct, the 3 Vietnam Service Medals, Combat Action Medal, the ribbon, it's a ribbon. We call it a Combat Action Ribbon. And the Bronze Star, that's all. The Presidential Unit citation, but that was for the whole unit. If it was an individual thing, it would be another Bronze Star, but it's for the whole unit.
Well, I can't imagine what you went through, but I just want to say thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And it's been an honor to have met you over these years.
I appreciate what you do for this town, believe me. I appreciate what you did for my son-in-law.
You know, but Al, hey, you know, you're a good man. You've been through a lot, and I'm glad we're able to get your story out, and I hope people recognize, and I suppose if there's a veteran out there that would probably like to talk to you, they can, you know.
You can put it, if they come to you, you got my number, you can get me and I'll come right to them.
Absolutely.
Especially suicide. If they're contemplating suicide, I want to know right away.
Well, that's good to know, and people can reach me even through the police department. Chief Allen will know how to get a hold of me. But again, I'd like to thank you. I mean, it's been an honor to have you on Answering the Call. I'm glad to get your story out there, and I would like to thank you all for watching. Have a good night.
Every single one of you are going through something that Marines before you have. That is exactly why we're here today. In this setting, that I'm hoping that you feel the spiritual connection, as well as I and my drill instructors do, is a monument dedicated to the recruits from 1966, 3rd Battalion, Platoon 3086. Just like you, they came. Just like you, they felt that same doubt. Just like you, they wanted to be a Marine. To get inspired by the ones that are standing up here that you know are up way before you and go to sleep way after you do. But what you don't know is, we're not just here to inspire you. You're here to inspire us. You make us better. Because we see that civilian on that very first day, and then we see that recruit, and it's starting to get and implement those core values we've been harping on. Those leadership traits, those leadership principles. We see it in you. We see the change that you're making in the transition. And now we are physically seeing the transition from a recruit to a Marine. This is a true testament that it's not only you that remembers us, but we will always remember you.